one thing that I've been thinking about here is of course to tie this back maybe to all these structures then that have been set up here on Earth, because I guess do you agree that we at one point had, as you say, this this global civilization that basically planted or constructed all these megaliths that we see today?
Yeah, I have two trains of thought here. I mean, the one question is, was it built before the flood or were they built after the flood? To try and retain that knowledge. There's more information and more reasoning, slightly in favor of it being before the flood. But to me, it doesn't really make any difference, because all that really counts is that they're trying to record something that is such an emotional, inspired event. Something to do with who we are and where we come from. That's what I think it's saying. And they've recorded it in such a massive size. That is another clue. Why did they make them so massive? I mean, the patterns that I'm showing you on my website on Stonehenge, you can only view them from satellites to make sense of them. Is the message for us on Earth, or is the message to other people out in the universe with super telescopes that are maybe 100 times stronger than the Hubble?
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I mean,
big twist in the story,
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of the pyramid.
I mean, could there be a kind of a distress signal of some kind?
I think it might be a very simple way to show other life out in the universe. This is who we are, where we come from, and there's a geometric code using the human dimensions of, like, Leonardo da Vinci's Geometric Man.
Yeah.
And I found this geometry encoded into the Giza area in Egypt.
Yeah.
I found it encoded into the center of Stonehenge, and particularly on the five-sided pyramid on Mars. And if you look at if it really depicts a human form as a story, and look at the star map and see that they correlate with the position of sun-like stars. Because there's actually two in particular positions, one that's more important than the other, and they both tie in with almost like a message. And the simplicity of it is, the star matches with the shape of the human form. Isn't it saying, this is the man that comes from the star? And the way that they've laid it out as a star map tells the position of it. So how more easy can it get to decipher?
Yeah. So of course, as you say, this is in Da Vinci's painting, and I know that you have been researching the Renaissance quite a bit, and I mean, what's your take on this? Is this basically kind of the reawakening, I guess, of this kind of information into the populace of this planet again, or what is it?
Well, the Renaissance age was something that happened 500 years ago, which means the reawakening, and maybe this is another Renaissance age. The first thing that I woke up with was that it wasn't Da Vinci that designed this geometric man. He didn't create it as such. He was repeating work from a man called Vitruvius, and Vitruvius was a lot younger, a lot earlier than his time. Another 1,500 years ago. That's 2,000 years ago, just before the time of Christ. Vitruvius had these, let's call it a sacred manuscript from somewhere, probably ancient already. And I found that there was a German researcher by the name of Hendrik Agrippa that also had it at the same time that Da Vinci had it, and that was about 500 years ago. And Hendrik Agrippa has shown it quite different to the way that Da Vinci showed it, and he showed the arms in the upper position overlaying two human forms, with a square, with a circle, but more information. He had an all-seeing eye depicted with it. The picture's on my website, by the way. It's on the page. But what's amazing me is this poor man was put to death the next day. He was burned at the stake for showing such esoteric things, whereas Da Vinci was let off, I think, because he showed a square and a circle as being important. But there's other information in there that Hendrik Agrippa has shown, and this is what I'm finding in these ancient sites, that when you put the arms in the upper position and look at this five-sided shape, it's a pentagonal shape. There's a man mimicking the shape of a star, doing a star shape, these legs apart, arms apart, and then arms in the upper position, making a five-pointed star. I think he's even telling the story himself as he is the star man, and there's star-shaped geometry within a circle that fits behind it. Now, that's esoteric and was taboo. And if I was doing this 500 years ago, I wouldn't be talking to you now.
No, exactly. I mean, what's that all about? I mean, what obviously, if someone so fiercely suppressing that kind of information back then, I mean, what is it that they know and that they don't want us to know?
I've only recently tried to make sense of that, and I put it on my website as well, because this is such vital information, and it's sensitive, and I like people to debate it. So what it looks like to me is that the law systems of the ages, go back 500 years ago, around the Northern Hemisphere, the basic law systems were religion. The churches were the law, and God's book was the law. But remember, mortal hand has tainted those works, and they've picked out and they've manipulated it to create more control of man. And the sad thing about it is the wonderful information about who we are and where we come from threatens that from the simple thing. It's actually uniting everybody as equals. Now, 500 years ago, slavery was big. Even women weren't equal to men. Yeah. So can you imagine now when you have this doctrine that associates itself with this who we are and where we come from, as all of us are equal and should have equal law? I'm sorry, they got to bury that. Let's go. It must be, kill people that research it and try and speak highly of it. They're associated with witchcraft. They even put satanic verses and all kinds of terrible things that attach with it with witchcraft, so they could say, well, these two things are the same. This person's researching it, therefore he is a witch. Burn him. It's quite awful the way that people were controlled because of this esoteric secret.
Exactly, and that seems to be kind of a strategy, I guess, to kind of, bunch together all kinds of different, as you say, esoteric information with a lot of, less, as you say, I guess satanic type messages and witchcraft and stuff like this.
Things. I mean, look, these are destructive things that I've seen in some of the, for example, the Clavicular Solemnis papers. Oh my gosh, you just can't believe some of the terrible ritual that they speak of, and how to control your fellow men, how to get your friend's wife. I mean, for heaven's sakes, they're associating these kind of verses with these symbols, and they turn it upside down. So there's another thing that I've noticed as well. When they take this 5-pointed star with a man in it, which is sacred and godly, they turn it upside down when they desecrate it, when they speak poorly of it, and they put a goat's face over it as well, which really shows that they hate it, they're mocking it. Which is quite amazing, because there's two ways to take this thing now. If you turn it upside down, it's like when they crucified the man that was named St. Peter.
Peter's, Petrus.
Of Rome, and they put him upside down, because perhaps he was trying to show the value of something important, tying in with this wonderful knowledge of the past and where everybody's equal, and they turned him upside down and crucified him, which is quite shocking what humans can do to other humans.
By the way, have you researched, kind of the tarot and stuff like this? Because that's one of the main cards there, the Hanged Man upside down.
Yeah, I've looked really briefly into that, but I haven't got too much into astrology. I'm an amateur astronomer, and I must be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about astrology, but there is something in astrology that I have to respect, and that is personality traits, being born in the position of the sun with specific constellations. You have similar traits, and I can't get around that. The more I research it, the more I see it. The more I see it in my family and friends, and so there is something to that, but maybe, again, it's something we need to learn a lot more on before we can really understand it. So it's still very early stages of astrology as such.
Absolutely, and the reason why I asked that too, of course, is and it's excellent that you bring that up, because I've been kind of pondering this for I guess the last year or something here regarding if these patterns that come, I guess if we build these kinds of megalithic sites and so forth, the question, I guess, is were we really aware of what we're doing, or is there something kind of deeply hidden in our I guess collective psyche that kind of makes that everything we touch kind of expresses these types of patterns? Do you follow what I mean here?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, that there's this kind of intuition that is being fed from somewhere.
Yeah.
I think the original ancient monuments were perhaps shown to people. There's definitely a time that people that built these things were, whether they were slaves or whether they worked just for the love of it, there were very poor conditions around these circumstances, and there were definitely situations where there were these wealthy, clever, well, not clever, but they must have been the engineers, the controlling kings and princes and
priest
hierarchy,
classes,
and using the cheap labor in that sense, to me, is quite upsetting to think about it, but I don't know enough to comment on it, but their knowledge seems to have been taught and shown, and it involves astronomy, mathematics, geometry, really advanced thinking. So the question is, were they rebuilding something from what they could remember, or were they being taught? We're never really going to know these things, but the most important thing is, what were they trying to say? And this is what I think these star maps are showing, because this pattern is appearing everywhere.
Yeah.
And I like people to go and look at it, not listen to it. You need to see the patterns of, for example, Stonehenge, and look at it from a satellite image, and look at these star patterns. They offer a star atlas. They're photographs in some cases of stars, and compare them, and use your own thinking and decide for yourself, what could it possibly mean?
Exactly. And one thing that I also saw on your website is the paintings in the caves in France. What's it called? Lascaux.
Yeah, Lascaux.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing stuff. I mean, what's your take on that? Because I know that...
Yeah, 17,000 years ago. I mean, gosh, 17,000 years ago. What was humankind like then? And there's no doubt about it. These were cave dwellers that lived with skins on their backs, and we've seen all the evidence on the floor. We found nothing advanced. There's no spoken word. It's all pictures and patterns. But what's so amazing is this whole cave is called the Hall of Bulls, because the bull image is the big deal there. There's two particular cases, and one more mythological, and one has got little dots filled in, which astronomers are saying, gosh, these seem to be recognition of stars. And have named them as such, which, what I'm agreeing with, the Pleiades. And why on earth did they choose a bull shaped for Taurus? They say it's a coincidence. It doesn't just happen in that area. We found it all over the world, that they're rearing a celestial bull and associating with people that sound like so-called gods. But on the one side of the cave, it shows a man. It shows this Da Vinci man, kind of arms outstretched, next to the bull as Orion, in the position. But it's not really Orion's belt pointing the way. He showed it as a part of the male anatomy, so you can work that one out. Showing the way to something important. And look at his head. Look closely at the head, because, in Egypt they had Sakar, or Horus, which is a bird-headed man.
Yeah, sure.
Sumeria, they had a same creature. They had them in all the civilizations, funny enough, different names, bird-headed looking, and we find it in this cave.
I know that when we spoke to Andrew Collins on this show, I mean, he talked about the Cygnus star and this kind of, I guess, radiation emanating from the Cygnus region. And I know he talked about, that there, when you go down deep into these caves, that you basically can see these patterns, or they kind of, you can get the, I guess, the neutrons or the radiation from the stars.
I think you were talking about,
Yeah, actually hits the retina of your eye or something to see these patterns. I mean, do you think that something like this could be involved here in this?
Gosh, well, that's the first time I've heard it with the cave effect, that he's actually having retinal impacts that show patterns. That's amazing. What it makes me think of, and this is also a fact, I heard it, or I read it in a very sort of inconsequential story, saying, oh, by the way, when the space shuttle astronauts go through the North and South Pole, in their solar activity, when they have the aurora,
sure.
they see patterns on their retinas.
Yeah, I've heard that